Hello, I'm Richard Carey, the host of the Bcamp podcast, and today we have with us Justin Bebis, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Conclave. So thank you for joining us, Justin. We're excited to have you today.
Excited to be here. Thank you for the introduction.
And maybe to get started, could you just tell us a little bit about Conclave? What are you guys up to? What are you guys thinking about?
Sure, yeah. So Conclave, for those that don't know, we are, depending on the month, one of the biggest DeFi R&D firms in the world. Right now, with a really strong product focus on our flagship codex, cod3x.org, building across AI, building across EVM, now as well Move, which we might discuss a little bit later on. But yeah, really, our goal is to innovate and to build awesome stuff and to find people willing to pay us for it. So we just try to make sure we're developing the best talent and conquering the hardest problems and having a good time along the way.
I love it. I love it. And I'd be interested to hear, I think the audience would as well, just a little bit about your journey into blockchain. How did you get where you are?
Yes, yeah, I'm kind of a boring guy. I'm kind of a normie. I don't have a big romantic story. I didn't get in early. Well, I suppose I did, but I really joined the blockchain world in 2020, and I was working as a business analyst, data analyst in a finance adjacent department in a health tech company, and I was doing a lot of learning early on in my job there, doing a lot of Googling, and as you might expect from a boring normie, once in a while I checked the Google News feed, and because I'd been researching a lot of accounting stuff, finance stuff, they served me an article about Bitcoin as a triple entry accounting solution. And before that, I was like, oh, Bitcoin is a scam. But then I read that, and I was like, oh, wow, this is actually awesome. And then I started thinking about it more. And I was like, imagine the applications to finance. Imagine the applications to financial markets. And lo and behold, I got interested right before DeFi summer. So I found myself really sucked into this magical world of food coins and millions of percentage points of APR. And from there, I decided I'm going to make this my career and I'm going to make this my life. And I built a company. And, since then, we've managed our billions of TVL and we've built a lot of really cool, innovative solutions. And I just really appreciate what the industry has given me, being a job where I get to solve hard problems all day.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds like the dream.
Yeah. I mean, I like, I could be making no money. And with crypto, it's like, okay, every 6 months you need to take a pay cut. You need to settle in for rough waters. We're kind of coming out of that period right now. But, what the stressors of volatility is more than made up for by the excitement of the problem domain. And it's like, oh, we're going to replace finance. It's not an if, it's not a when. It's like we're doing it now, and we're growing. And any fintech engineer or anybody working in fintech, if they were intellectually honest and knew how blockchain worked, would agree. It's really inevitable. And you hear a lot. Born too late to be a crusader, born too early to explore the planet. I feel very content. I was born just in time to engineer a new financial paradigm, so I'm feeling pretty good about that.
I love that. I love that. Now, yeah, you mentioned the volatility. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on how you think about building a team, and especially with all this volatility. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've grown and shrunk our team a couple times now. We've been kind of through a couple market cycles, and I would say it's really hard. I think in crypto there's not a lot of job security. I think what we've prided ourselves on historically is really prioritizing the worker and prioritizing the long term and prioritizing job security. But even then, it's like you're in a market where decades of time and development can be compressed into weeks in terms of like financial markets and finding product market fit, whatever. So every step you take is a little bit riskier. And I would say we always try to tread the line between service provider and creators of products in our own right, kind of like I guess like an R&D firm. I guess that's not too atypical. It's just kind of a hard business to run. So, I mean, I think really we just try to find people who love it. And if you really love it and you're really in it for the tech, then you just kind of figure out the volatility. It's like, oh, well, this quarter we're going to be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. This quarter we can eat chicken wings 3 times a week. And that's sort of the paradigm we operate within. But a lot of our team members that work with us now have been with us for 3+ years. I'm proud to say we have some of the most senior DeFi engineers in the whole industry. And, really the mindset is we're just going to be the best we can be. And in terms of like the financials and the commercials, we'll figure it out. And usually things tend to work out when you prioritize excellence and you prioritize having the top talent.
Yeah, interesting. Now, what advice would you give to somebody trying to get into blockchain right now? Blockchain development.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the thing is, like, Bitcoin is going crazy, but that doesn't necessarily mean the job market is going crazy. I would say, like, the biggest employer of blockchain engineers is ETH and the Ethereum ecosystem. And I think what we're seeing is Bitcoin going crazy and ETH, L2s, et cetera, sort of stalling. So VCs are starting to lose a lot of money. The job market is a little tenuous. And if your goal is to build innovative solutions, which obviously Bitcoin is innovative in a lot of ways, but it's kind of, it doesn't need much more work. And the work that happens on it is very slow. And you don't really need a lot of people to do it. So I guess like what I would recommend is trying to find a way to hustle, trying to find a way to grind out and start a business and pay yourself. If you're just starting, because there were a bunch of layoffs at Kraken. There were a bunch of layoffs. I'm sure at every big crypto company there have been a ton of layoffs in the past 3 to 6 months. Some public, some not. So yeah, I guess what I would say is find your niche. Find a place where you fit. The market right now is desperate for developers, but it's desperate for developers to launch meme coins and maintain them and build use cases around them. And I think that isn't really attractive to a lot of engineers. And I would say thinking about how you can monetize yourself or monetize a business in this new paradigm is the number one thing I would recommend to new people. It's like protocols are now being evaluated based on discounted cash flows, which means they're being evaluated quite low. And yet meme coins are rocketing to billions in market cap. And I think like that brings a lot of disillusionment, but you need to always think, this is what the market wants. How can I fulfill my goals and fulfill my dream within this paradigm? Complaining will never help. It's really like, this is the stack of cards right now that I have to play with to work in this really fun industry. So you damn well better figure out how to play with it. So I would say that's recommendation number one. Figure out how to monetize and do all that. Your skill set. And recommendation number two is, I would say, like, just be out there, have exposure. I think when I started out as a developer, the way I built up my network was just by being the developer in the Telegram or in the Discord, being the guy who would analyze things from a technical perspective, being the guy who would audit smart contracts for people before we aped in. And that's a valuable guy. And, with exposure in this industry, being smart, technical, and high integrity, these people that you interface with on a daily basis in group chats or in wherever, one of them is probably going to get rich. And one of them is probably going to start a business. and one of them is probably going to need your help. And so that's why I always like to reinforce like being present, being out there, and otherwise just get so good that someone will have to hire you. That's another option. But in the meantime, I think it's really just kind of proving that, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm high integrity. I'm high trust, and it will come naturally.
Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned before that you really look for people who who love what they're doing or who love the industry. Do you have a way to measure that, or is it just like when you talk to somebody, you kind of know? Like, how do you?
You know, it's like by the way they talk about stuff. You know by the way they interact, by the twinkle in their eye. It's really like finance is fun, and Web3 is fun, and it's cringe. It can be weird. It can be annoying. It can be awful sometimes. But you know that when you wake up, it's going to be something new. Obviously, like that's not for everyone, but for the right person, that's like where you want to be. This is the Wild West. So yeah, I mean, very quickly in conversations, I will know, okay, this person is passionate. They're intrinsically motivated. They're not profit motivated. Those are the people that it's easy to give opportunities to. It's like, oh, this person's going to succeed with or without me. And then it's just like, oh, this is a good job and I can potentially get rich, which, great. You could be that guy. It's just don't expect to last long unless you're very, very lucky, unless you really love it, because this industry chews people up and spits them out, as I'm sure many people know. And the only way to really be successful is to be sincere, to be high integrity, to be high trust, and to really have thick skin. Because very rarely is a developer or an engineer so exposed to, I guess, the worst the internet has to offer, and the best in some ways. But yeah, you just kind of need to know what you're getting into to be successful. You'll know pretty quickly whether it's for you or not, or if you talk to someone, whether it's for them.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's definitely been some ups and downs in the space. Now, I'd be curious. So you're talking about a bunch of big, well-known blockchain organizations that are laying people off, and at the same time, though, it seems like there's actually quite a bit of investment, at least into Bitcoin, and usually, there's some carryover in Ethereum.
Yeah, usually, you hope. This morning, someone that I kind of know got liquidated on their ETH BTC position because Bitcoin is pumping so hard. They lost $7 million. So that should tell you the state of Ethereum. It's like, I mean, frankly, like Ethereum is just kind of losing a lot of traction to Solana, and it's not really as correlated to Bitcoin as it has been in past cycles. And that may change. Really, we're just talking about 9 months of price action here. And as unfortunate as it is to have to talk about price action, it's like our clients and our customers and everybody who kind of drives the industry forward, whether they're making money or not, really defines what the job market is going to be like. And so I would say, like, there's a lot of capital tied up in delayed token launches, TGEs. There's a lot of capital tied up in ETH positions that you're not really going to move your ETH if ETH isn't doing anything. So it seems like there's a lot of money going in, but really that money is not reaching, I think, the developer. It's not reaching the engineer. It's not reaching the firm as you typically would expect it to. And now I think that's going to change, and in the long term, these things usually self-regulate. But yeah, even on Solana, like, you would expect Solana's going crazy, but it's like there's just a monopoly there, a vertically integrated monopoly, which you don't need infinite developers if there's not a lot of competition. So really, I think right now the job market for blockchain engineers and for DeFi engineers, Solidity engineers, et cetera, will really depend on whether these ETH-focused firms can get above water. And so we can move on to the next stage. I think something that was a bit depressing was the wave of protocols that came with EigenLayer. You know, everybody's hopes were so high, and we spent 6 to 12 months with EigenLayer and LRTs and restaking being the core of the entire ETH development ecosystem. And obviously it's been doing great, but it hasn't really been a driver of growth, more so like a shuffling around of existing capital. So yeah, hopefully that gives you kind of a snapshot of what things are like today. And you know, I there's definitely like going to be rotation of capital into ETH. You know, my holdout, and if you watch this will be a quick chill, but if you watch our podcast, Club Codex, if you go to our Twitter or whatever, you can, we post about it all the time. But we always talk about our ETH copium, where we're just like, okay, ETH isn't moving because XYZ, but this is what's going to happen, and ETH is going to be back, baby. And one of mine is, well, long story short, ETH goes up, developers get jobs. Enough said.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's now, at the risk of going down a rabbit hole, it seems like more or less one of the killer applications for ETH has been stablecoins. Do you see that creating any jobs, or is that basically just the big, there's a few people that have big stablecoins that are getting all the benefit from that?
Yeah, I don't see stablecoins as big job creators. It's similar to LRTs in that you're effectively just a token issuer. And when you're a token issuer, all you need to do is develop a token, a redemption and issuance mechanism, and maybe some periphery. And a lot of that can be handled by third parties, and it's not really a big grower of jobs per se. No, I think stablecoins are awesome, and stablecoins have the potential to grow the job market. But if you think about Tether, for example, how many billions and billions and billions of issuance do they have? And their team is like 10 people. And so I think really like you kind of need complexity, and you kind of need like a broad range of services to be a big job creator. And at the moment, it's like, okay, everybody's trading meme coins. That goes back to just simple token issuance, and token issuance doesn't require a lot of engineering power. And so a lot of people in crypto right now are defaulting to really simple use cases. I think a lot of teams have been scared away by the difficulty of DeFi engineering. But that's to say, like, or that's not to say there isn't an opportunity for a boom. I think that it really is a matter of things getting more competitive. And for things to get more competitive, I think we'll need to see more use cases, because DeFi has been kind of built out. There's not like a ton of iteration. There's not a lot of work left to do. Industry leaders and winners have sort of been chosen. You know, you've got your Aave, you've got your Uniswap. You have a handful of things that are very similar to Aave and Uniswap. And then you have some of the more niche stuff. And like I mentioned on Solana, it's like you have Radium, you have Pump Fund, you have Jupiter, and you have Jito. And then you have like Moonshot and some of the other kind of Meteora. That's kind of, they're building a similar ecosystem to the Pump Fund, to Jito pipeline. But it's really like, okay, here are these 4 protocols. They don't really need to innovate much. They do exactly what they need to do. They're forks of Ethereum protocols for the most part. Although you can't really call them a fork. It's an entirely different language and a different execution environment. But what else is there? So, you know, how we've been handling it as a team is we've been kind of branching out into new programming languages, new paradigms. The Move ecosystem is something we're starting to dabble in. It's a little bit greenfield. But yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, there's not as much creativity now in the market. And even at the VC level, there's not as much creativity. There's not people willing to, buy into the big, crazy visions, etc. Which is like, it just is what it is. It's a sign of maturity. People kind of know what's possible and what's not. So yeah, we're just kind of settling into our kind of, I would say we're like, the industry is in its young adult phase right now. It's like just gaining some legitimacy. Now that Gensler's fired, I'd say we just came of age. We're maybe 25, and we're ready to kind of become old and boring now, which I welcome. But certainly for the job market, it's like you need to be really freaking good because there's a lot of old heads in the business right now.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, thank you, Justin, for joining us. One last question that I'm interested to hear. I'd be interested just to hear about your own educational experience and what are some important moments in your education that maybe helped you get to where you're at.
Sure. So, I mean, I've always loved learning. I'm autodidact, self-educated, etc. I didn't go to, well, I did a little bit of college, just like while I was working when I was like in my late teens, early 20s. Took some classes, didn't really have a purpose, didn't really learn anything about computers or anything. Well, I did take a class on Photoshop or like graphic design, which honestly helped quite a bit in my early phase of work because we didn't need to hire a designer. But self-taught programmer, I've taught like a ton of programmers on my own as well, and my team has. Obviously, you've taught many more through Bcamp. I think really like I was never a great student, but I always loved knowledge, and so yeah, I just figured it out. And I would say there was a time when I would say I was one of the more knowledgeable Ethereum developers out there, but unfortunately I've moved up to management. The people that work with me are way smarter. So yeah, I mean, my educational background is obviously there's a lot of educating, but not really much formal, and lots of reading. I like to buy textbooks on Amazon and just read them. I think about all the money I save by not going to a college course. If you see back here, I've got like all the classics. I've got SICP JavaScript edition. The original one was in Lisp. I remember getting that from my library. They had to special order it. And then the frickin' late fee was $1 a day, and they only let me have it for 2 weeks, so I ended up paying like $50. A lot of people hate this book, but it's a really good one, Design Patterns. It basically teaches you about object-oriented programming and how to think about abstraction in a world of OOP. Like functional programming, SICP is all about abstractions as like, how are we going to create the most secure, intelligent software for the purpose of doing a thing, whereas object-oriented programming is more system-oriented, as in, how are we going to take this big idea and implement it in code? And I like, both are very useful. And there is a book, I don't think, I let someone I know borrow it, so you could smarten up, but Fundamentals of Software Architecture is one of my favorite software books. It's an O'Reilly book. Highly recommend it. One of the best software books, I think, if you're just getting started. Pragmatic Programmer. I mean, I have a bunch of textbooks here. Some of them are great, some of them suck. And then, like, learning how to be a CEO, it's like, there's so many good frickin' books about leadership. It's like, we got Leadership BS. We got Firms of Endearment. And these ones I literally asked ChatGPT. I was like, I'm trying to be a better CEO. Can you recommend books for me? And then it gave me books, and I was like, can you recommend more niche books that are a little less known, but some cult classics? And I've got books scattered all around. But yeah, just read a lot. Just understand that you know way less than the people that have been doing stuff for 50 years, and listen to them. And once you have absorbed all of their knowledge, then you can try to freestyle a little more.
Yeah, I love that. That's a lot of books. I'm surprised that you've got textbooks sitting within arm reach so that you can reference them.
Here's Here's one that I own. And this is like a really famous book about algorithms. I've never read it. I've only like once in a while I like read a paragraph or look through it because I unfortunately became a manager right after I got this. So I was like, eh.
The time investment may not have been worth it on that one.
Yeah, I've just resigned myself to being kind of like a dumb guy. And a funny thing, what you'll learn when you read books about being a CEO is the most effective CEOs are not the smartest. Lower IQ CEOs actually have like better outcomes just because they tend to not overthink things so much. So basically what I do to be good at my job is every day I actually take one of these heavy textbooks and hit my head about a dozen times to get ready for the day. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's like education I think is a very personal journey. It's like everybody's totally different. And like, in school, everybody had high hopes for me. I was like, ninth percentile, whatever. But it's like I just absolutely sucked. I was so bad at school. I didn't go to class. I hated it. But yeah, it's like once you figure out how you learn and how you enjoy learning, I think the rest kind of takes care of itself. And what you like. It's like, I don't need to be learning about mitochondria. Although I do use some of the stuff that I learned in school, understanding that ribosomes can produce their own proteins helped me when I got into fad diets for a while. So it's like some of the knowledge comes into play in the personal life, but I think career-wise, it's like just figure out what you want to do, find a mentor, and just frickin' do the work. I know that was a really long answer to a short question, but I'm part proud and part ashamed of my education. Proud in that I've gotten so far being self-taught, and obviously, it's hard to walk into the VC meeting or whatever and say, "Oh, I didn't go to college." Everybody like knows that it's a scam, but it's hard to say that unless you're like Bill Gates or whatever, because the reality is like. All the investors, all the VCs, all those guys, they spent the $200K to go to Stanford or whatever. So they'll look down on you unless you're super successful. So if you don't go to college, you just need to try really, really hard. But I guess the cost savings are worth it. That's a lot of change.
Yeah, I love that. I love those thoughts, just especially like just figure out what you want to do. And then there's just so many options today. I think the options are just proliferating. And so it's more about making a choice and choosing what you want to do and then getting good at that and finding mentors. So I love that.
Yeah. Be excellent and find a market. That's literally like, if it's the most niche, stupid thing in the world, then just frickin' record yourself on TikTok and sell T-shirts or whatever. It's like, that's one of the nice things about capitalism. It's like money flows like water, and you just need to kind of, get in the way of a stream and figure it out. But, you obviously you have to be passionate. You have to be excited about it. But otherwise, yeah, it's an interesting world we're in, and crypto's like hyper-capitalism. So if you like underwater basket weaving, just make underwater basket weaving coin and live stream yourself 6 hours a day weaving underwater baskets, and then sell them as NFTs for $1,000 a pop.
That's the solution to the labor market in blockchain, I think, right there.
Exactly, dude. Honestly, like if you're willing to deal with meme coin traders, then you can just turn anything into a job. You just need to deal with people screaming at you every time the price goes down, and then you need to also learn to steel yourself against people thinking you're a god every time the price goes up. You just need to become a rock. Yeah, I think having a family and friends helps with that. Just have a personal life, and you won't get lost in the cities.
Yeah, that's wise words.
Surround yourself with people who think you're an idiot. Yeah.
Keep you grounded in any way possible.
Yeah. It's a classic setup.
I like that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Justin. This has been a pleasure to hear about how you're thinking about the industry, how you think about the labor market and jobs, and super valuable. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and Love talking to you as always, Mr. Carey.